Purpose. Our current state of understanding of purpose is that it is based on grade level standards, intentionally linked to other lessons, transferable skills such as applying in a broader context. The target is clear and measurable, based on students' learning needs, and the target is clear and understood by the students with student-friendly language. Thank you very much.
Give purpose a hand.
All right, so we have student engagement, and our thinking took us to the intellectual engagement's combination of ownership and participation. And feel free to jump in.
Their work and their thinking that goes into it. And so we had it, this is the symbol for change, those of you that have been out of high school for a while, is as they own their work, they're thinking about it, they're participating, here's a reflection of their work, they're reflecting on it. Maybe if I could, so they're building upon their prior skills and their learning.
So in order to engage students, starting with connecting with their background, culture, languages, and experience to make those connections. And
the rabbit hole.
Okay.
The rabbit hole is this idea that once they've got their learning and they're thinking, maybe if I can or next time I could, the rabbit hole is where we don't know where we're going with this learning, and they're free to follow that path and disappear down that hole and pursue something.
In depth.
Okay, thank you, student engagement.
And one of the biggest aspects that they're looking for is student engagement, and not just raising your hand, but looking at kids. I can verbalize my learning in a new context, and then interacting with other students so that the other student might say, that's cool, I also think, so that they're able to communicate their own knowledge, learning, and then build upon that with other students as they discuss it.
And to do it in an equitable way, we have 2 different students responding, and then also a variety of ways to respond in the classroom, like choral response, table talk, so that, a few people are not the only ones doing the responses, that it's equitable throughout the class.
So curriculum and pedagogy, we talked about what you're teaching and how you're teaching, making sure it's supportive for all, culturally responsive and engaging, and differentiate instructional strategies based on planned and in the moment, not either or, but both, and scaffolding leading to gradual release and independence. And Gwendolyn had some good thoughts about flexibility.
Well, we thought about the kind of the underlying theme for all of these things, and what is required to make all of these successful is flexibility on the part of everybody. So flexibility on the part of the students, but also flexibility on the part of the teachers. When you get so rigid and your lesson plans are so rigid in what's going to happen, this is how we planned it, this is how it needs to go, but if it's just not happening, the ability to be flexible and move, and oh no, they're interested in that, so just that flexibility piece of making sure that we're not so rigid in our plans, that we can make sure that we are meeting all of these goals.
Okay, so we had assessment for student learning, and I think the biggest piece that we were supposed to take away from this was the for student learning piece, because we often sometimes feel like we're just doing assessment for assessment, and we need to have meaningful data out of that and then do something meaningful with it. So we talked about having multiple opportunities to show the progress that each child will make, and in different ways. So you might have the same, you will have the same learning target, but it might look different for different children based on their needs and their skill levels on how to approach assessing that, if they've made that learning target. And then the variety of assessment tools and approaches for that, the collecting meaningful data, of course, the summative, formative, and observational assessments. Then we talked about the quick check-ins, and then that would be monitoring and adjusting your instructional approach. And then the backwards design of approaching a lesson with what is the outcome I'm looking for here, and then backing up to beginning your instruction. Back to having it be for student learning, the biggest deal was to include students in the conversation about their assessment. What is the learning target, and then how am I going to get to that, and then how is my progress toward that learning target at this moment, and then having them talk about with you in how do I modify and adapt if I'm not on target toward that goal. And so a lot of the monitoring and adjusting for our instruction, but also for the students with their learning as well.
Yeah, so the students are trying to learn from their mistakes and then revise their thinking. So if their thinking wasn't correct the first time around, getting them to actually revise that and carry it on forward.
Because it's never really for us about the final score, it's about the journey toward learning their target, learning targets.
Ours is classroom environment culture. The first part was the physical environment, and so had organized classroom in flexible, fluid seating in the sense that we not always keep kids at the same seat every single day. I know in COVID that has changed a lot. Having supplies and materials in an organized manner so that students can access things easily and be independent within the classroom. Thinking about seating arrangements thoughtfully, and also a big part of it is the teacher moving through the classroom, not just standing at the front of the classroom, but being able to move through and check in with those kids that might need a little extra while you're teaching. You want to talk about routines?
Sure. So the second part was routines and rituals, and we talked about how morning routines kind of give like structure, and students like structure in the morning. Student input for guidelines, so setting norms and expectations and rules, kind of student driven in the beginning of the school year. And consistency and like enforcing those rules, routines, so students know what to expect every day. And then foster student independence, so knowing the routine so they can get their Chromebooks out, they can get their iPads, they can find supplies, and they can kind of self-start because of the routines in place. So that goes kind of with procedures, and then building that sense of community through rituals, whether it's SEL in the morning or sharing, however we do that, and then responsibility kind of like for themselves in the classroom.
Kids have a sense of belonging and that they feel safe and comfortable, and that willingness to take risks in our classroom, and have those high expectations, and the kids know that they can meet those in a safe way, being collaborative with each other, having time for student to student talking, and always celebrating growth. And then our whole is having a peaceful classroom. It's our goal within that.